Hi, I'm Brandon Kelly Beck, and I just started a podcast. I'm here today with my friend, Joey Kane. He owns Joe Kane Fitness, right? Is that the name of your personal training?
That'll work for now.
That'll work for now? Yeah, man, you've been in the process of kind of getting that going.
Yeah, probably I've done it off and on for 15 years or so. So
Yeah. So I know you've been doing the personal training, fitness stuff for about 15 years. What I was curious about today is like when someone who's never worked out in their life and they want to start like getting into working out for the first time. You know, a lot of people think they can do it on their own, but why would it be better to just go ahead and start with a personal trainer?
yeah, so there's a lot of people think they know what they should be doing, and the problem is that most of the stuff that people see and take in, especially like social media and stuff like that, it's way more advanced than what they need, way more complicated than what they need, and consistency is probably the biggest factor for like starting to get good results. And if you're doing all these crazy workouts and things like that, your body's not used to it to begin with. So you're going to be really sore and you're not going to be able to be consistent typically. So, and it's usually going to be more advanced as far as technique, intensity, things like that than what most beginners are ready for.
I kind of get the avatar image of the person who's like, I'm going to work out, and then they like get into hitting it too hard. Then they're too sore, and then they like burn out after 2 weeks, and they're like, didn't like the way that felt kind of thing. Is that like a typical, I think I've had that pattern in the past before. So.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is that most people plan what they could accomplish on their best day rather than like on their worst or when things go wrong. So you had this idea of, oh, well, if everything goes right at work and the kids are okay and this and that, then I can go and do this exercise. And it's like, that's fantastic. But what happens when little Billy got in trouble at school? And now you have to sit in there for an hour. Okay, there goes your window.
Yeah, so they plan to get their workouts in with the best case scenario.
Yep.
And I've always heard this saying, like, if you have these troubling times going on in your life and you create a workout routine, even through all the stress and the struggles, then typically that'll carry you over through. Not to say people need to have that to get working out, but there is something to making the time. And I know for me, I got into the habit of working out 6 days a week early on at the beginning. And I had to make the time. Like that was if you're going to get 6 workouts in a week, you have to get up early and get them in before work. Yeah. I mean, really, that's what I think. That's like the best timeline for me. I know everyone's different, but.
Yeah, for a lot of people, if you can do it earlier in the day, that's usually better because nobody has like grabs on your time. Because again, things go wrong throughout the day. You don't wake up having a bunch of calls typically. Typically, it's like, hey, can you stay late for work? Hey, can you do this extra project? Hey, I don't feel like cooking dinner. Can you run? Like, you have these things that continuously add on to the end of your day. Whereas if you do it in the beginning of your day, less grabs on your time, especially since you're probably in the minority as far as waking up early to then go do these things. The other point you made was talking about like kind of scheduling it. I think that's probably the biggest thing is if people can schedule it, and especially early on, if you make it a 5 to 7 day habit, even if the 5 to 7 days isn't in the gym weight training, if it's just walking or something like that, it gets you into the pattern of, okay, at this time, I am scheduling that time for myself. I am now working on my fitness or my health.
Yeah. I think that's good. That kind of reminds me of when I used to work as a nurse. I'd work night shifts and I was working 5 days a week. And it was easy to stay on a night shift, like, circadian rhythm. And I thought when I went down to 4 days a week, it would make it easier because I'd have another day off a week. And it actually made it kind of harder. Like I would fall out of that circadian rhythm and then it'd be harder to, go into work or stay up all night for that. A little different, but I get what you mean with the consistency because you miss 1 day and get back on. It's no big deal. 2 days. Okay. 3 days. All right. Now you're starting to fall off. And if it's 4 days, it's like,
it's start over.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just starting over at that point. Yeah. you said like you would start with like a simple kind of first thing. I guess the first thing is getting your time block, right? Like you have to tackle that first and you have to commit to a time block.
Yeah.
And the morning, people don't own that time typically. And things don't come up in that time. Like you're not going to be working out at 5:30 in the morning and someone called because your kid got in trouble for something,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. There's no emergency at 5:30 in the morning typically.
Exactly.
But 5:30 in the evening, people might be grabbing for that time.
You still got fires put out.
Yep, exactly. So first thing is getting that time block. And then is there a certain like routine or something that you'd suggest for people? I know I have my own kind of idea on that, but I'm kind of curious, like to get started, what kind of routine you would tell people to get started with.
Yeah. So typically there's one of two routes that I would go for. One is either something very easy, low hanging fruit walking, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's low intensity, something that you can do every day. And it's not going to necessarily generally put a beating on your body. Whereas if somebody's starting weight training every day and they've never done weight training before, they're going to be really sore and it's going to be harder to stay consistent. The other route is to find something that is something you find really engaging and fun. So if you have something like frisbee, golf, something like that where, okay, well, maybe it's not what most people traditionally allocate as exercise, but it's adding this activity in on a regular basis that you're doing. The one trouble with that is trying to then transition to higher intensity work because you're going to want to continue doing the thing that you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what I'm thinking of is you went like the route, yes, the walking is the low hanging fruit,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding an activity that you like. I think people get really obsessed with finding I've got to like exercise. And I've definitely taken more of the approach of like, what a myth, like who cares if you don't like it? Do it, and the way that I think of it is like my friend told me this 15 minutes, no more, no less. You literally set a timer for 15 minutes and you do some sort of workout and you do it every day, like that consistency. And if you can't find 15 minutes in your day, 3 songs to do the exercise, I mean, that's a different challenge there. Or, honestly, you're probably not trying hard enough, in my opinion, to create 15 minutes of space for yourself. But that's kind of the harsher, like, come on, because once you start doing 15 minutes every day, that'll snowball into more. You're not, there's going to be days you want to go longer, but you stopped yourself because it's a no more, no less. You don't do more than you might want to go further. And I'd tell people don't.
Yeah, everybody has a starting point, and if that's 15 minutes, fantastic. If it's 10, fantastic. Because
true.
You may not, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30. Again, but this goes back to that idea of, so the idea of scheduling starts to talk about like dedication versus motivation, which is I think something you kind of touched on as far as you have to like it. And the fact is if you're trying to implement an exercise program into your lifestyle, there's a reason. You want some sort of change.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that change may not happen every day that you're motivated. So if instead you go, again, that scheduling is that first key piece. It's like, okay, well, instead of being when I feel like it, I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to do it each and every day. So that's kind of that first step, kind of going to what you were talking about as far as, okay, 15 minutes, no more no less. It makes it to where it's definite. This is what I'm doing, regardless of how I feel. Not everybody, most people don't wake up in the morning and go, wow, I'm really refreshed and want to go to work because this is what I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I guess most people, you'd be right. You'd be right. And I think you hit a point relying on the way you feel. What if you never feel like working out? Then you never, like you said, there's a deeper part of you that wants to work out, wants to be fit, wants to be healthy. But there's always going to be this part that may not want to work out sometimes.
Well, there's a cost to every decision you have in life. So that's the thing, is it's like, do I want to work out now so that I can be healthier when I'm 70 years old? Or do I want to, do these other things in my life and not care about healthy lifestyle and just enjoy this time. And so it's really a matter of, again, cost analysis and things like that.
Mm. I think that happens a lot with people who have kids. Everyone puts their kids first, and they're like, I got to take care of my kids. But I always have this mindset, like, all right, that's great. You want to take care of your kids, be there for your kids. But if you work out and you have greater longevity, then that like half an hour you do a day or whatever time will tack on at the end of your life. So you might live, let's say you live 10 years longer, but they're good 10 years.
Yeah.
Versus how you would be living 10 years shorter, but the last 10 years you have poor mobility, so it's kind of like you get 20 more years total because, people get old and they have poor mobility, and you'd kind of be able to cut that bad 10 years at the end off and maybe add 10 more years. And that's, I can't predict everyone's life, but I've seen people who are, I've worked as a nurse. I've seen immobile people for the last 10, 15 years of their life, and it's not enjoyable quality of life. So, and they're not there for their kids anymore at that point. So like you could trade a little, and I know that's a mindset thing that people have to wrap their head around, that, hey, I do this for me now. I actually get significantly more time to spend with my children throughout their life.
So, yeah. And I think the other piece is recognizing that you can't help anybody if you're not in the right place physically. So you need to help yourself before you can help others. Now, that doesn't mean like in a pinch, obviously little Johnny's going to be the priority. But on a general basis, if you prioritize your health, you're going to be in a better spot to help everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, if you prioritize your finances, you're in a better spot to help somebody if they're in a jam.
Mm-hmm.
If you're broke, you can't give money to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of going, okay, well, how do I do that in a way that's responsible both to me and to everyone around me? And that might be, I only have 30 minutes because if I do more than 30 minutes of exercise, now it's starting to cut into Johnny's baseball practice. Okay, well, I'm going to give up another half hour so that I can accommodate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you make a point that a lot of emergency medical staff have. Whenever you go to a scene, you always assess the safety first. Because if you don't, like there's a power line down and you rush in to save someone and you end up getting shocked, then nobody's there to save you or the other people. So it's kind of like you do have to have this foundational health to be there for people. Are there some common themes that you see for people and the reasons why they want to get fit and healthy?
Usually it's to recapture something that they had in their youth that they no longer have, because most people, when they're young, are fairly active. They're moving around because of physical education programs in school, although that's another topic. But moving around a lot, used to play school sports, things of that nature. And then as you transition into adulthood, whether it's going to college or post-college, okay, now I'm sitting at a desk, I'm doing this job for 8 hours a day, and I'm not really moving a whole lot. On top of that, now my time is more constrained. So I'm usually like, how do I eat? Am I making meals? Probably not. Mom's not making meals for me anymore. So now it's a matter of, where do I get my food? Oh, well, I'll just grab this food as convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have this combination of, okay, I'm sitting around a lot, I'm eating this calorically dense food, so your body just kind of gets away from you. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, I'm not the same person I was when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times you see people, either it's post-college or post-kids, where it's, so usually 25 or 35 or 40, people try and come in and try and reclaim their youth.
That's always an interesting thing that I find, the reclaiming youth. And I mean, to some extent, that's why I want to be fit, healthy. I have like a vanity thing for me. I want to look good and look younger, look youthful. I don't know that I want to reclaim my youth. I've always had this idea, because you can't go back, unfortunately. Yeah. There's a lot of great things that happen when we're younger and you can't go back. So I think initially people want to go back, but they really need to find this future vision of them evolving into the healthiest version of themselves at the age that they are in currently, with age appropriate kind of things within reason. I mean, you can do a lot of kid like stuff at pretty much any age. There's lots of things, Um, a lot of my patients, they want to play with their kids is the thing, or grandkids or something. They want to be able to get on the floor and get up off the floor too. So, but to be like, look, I want to look like how I was. I want to be that weight that I was. I think that makes it kind of a, you know, that's like you want to you need to evolutionary, evolve, not de-evolve back to who you once were. So there's more psychological stuff to that, but I get why people would want it. Um, so yeah, so they want to reclaim their youth. That's interesting. I didn't think of that. I thought you would say like they want to live longer for their family or something like that, but
Well, I think those two ages are not necessarily at that point yet where you're looking at mortality in the very obvious sense.
You mean like that mid-20s or mid-30s to 40s kind of
Yeah,
range?
it still feels like, I feel like I could be 20 still, or I still,
Yeah.
whereas once you get to a certain point, I'm sure, and this is a guess on my part, but from some of the clients I've talked to, they recognize, hey, I'm on the tail end of my journey here. I want to try and maintain my quality of life as I'm going through at this point. A lot of the vanity and things like that isn't necessarily, to a certain extent, still there, but not for the same reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They want to still be able to get up, do the things they were doing. It's not necessarily looking for, attraction for mates and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Because it's almost like my heart hierarchy is the vanity level and also physical athleticism, and then kind of health below that. Whereas, maybe someone has the same exact reasons why they want it, but it's flipped the other way around, where it's like health, mobility, and then, oh, I still want to look good in my clothes or something like that.
Well, and that's part of the reason, like, getting with a trainer is really important too, because they can usually help guide you a little bit as far as sorting that out, because most people don't take the time to actually even think about that, like on a cognitive level. They're just like, oh, I want to get in shape. And they have all these motives, but they're kind of down inside and they don't articulate them. They don't actually go through the process of figuring it out. They just have these feelings. Oh, I want to be in shape because.
Yeah.
And so when you sit down with a coach or something like that, it's like, hey, why do you really want to do this? And having somebody talk their way through and verbalize what they actually want sometimes is different than what they thought they wanted before that conversation.
Yeah. What you're basically saying is, I want to get fit because that's like an equation, and they're missing the X. It's like the second part of it. And when you talk to a coach, you kind of figure out what that is. And maybe it is, what's the first thing I hear a lot? Oh, because I want to be healthier. That's an arbitrary word. What does that even mean? It's like you kind of have to dive into what does that even look like to you. So you're creating this future vision that they actually want, and then you're going to design a plan for them to get there, basically. And everybody's a little different with what they want to do, I guess, at what level they want to put into it, so to say. Yeah. I'm trying to think with the workouts. Let's take like an avatar or something. Let's say it's like a 35-year-old woman who's never worked out.
Okay.
So you get them started. Hey, they found their time. They're going to do morning workouts. They started with doing walk-in. And then I know a lot of women want to do like Pilates or yoga, but I definitely have a bias towards like actual, just because I've done that a little bit, yoga and stuff, and I've gotten so much benefit from actual weightlifting through a designed plan through a personal trainer, and it's dramatically changed the way I feel in my body and my physique and everything. So if they work with the trainer, they could get that customized plan and learn how to do those exercises. Would that be the best kind of option for most people to get started, or would you just kind of go along with, oh, if that's what you want to do, yoga, Pilates, then let's keep moving it in that direction.
I think you have to read the room and figure out where somebody is on their journey. So some people, they, even though they're motivated to make change, they may need to be, hey, let's hold your hand a little bit more in this first few steps, because then they're going to hit a point where they're like, fantastic, this is great. But, however, going back to what you were saying about weight training, yeah, I'd like to see people weight training as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean that both from a perspective of their age as well as their time on their journey. So I'd rather see somebody start lifting earlier in their life, especially if we have an option,
Yeah.
because that's when you're going to be you're going to have the most ability to gain muscle, which is going to be more important at the tail end of your life for quality of life.
Yeah.
Trying to put on muscle mass when you're older is just harder.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know when I first started working with my personal trainer, he did like an assessment thing, and he was finding where my muscle imbalances were. And then the way he would design a lot of our programs would focus on correcting these muscle imbalances. And I thought I was working out good for, about a year straight of lifting, doing your regular stuff. But once I worked with him, he really could point out that my techniques weren't quite right. And that's why I think if people just get with the trainer and start training properly early on, like you start getting the tech, like you'll get your results faster, in my opinion. If you go that route with, like, let's say you do the walking and then you do your, I don't know, 4 workouts a week. Would that be reasonable for most people for, like strength training workouts, or,
General rule is 2 to 6.
2 to 6.
So, and that really depends on what the program looks like, because you could have more sessions. You're just taking that total volume and splitting it up over those total number of sessions, versus if you have 2 larger full body workouts, okay, those are just going to be a little bit longer in the gym on those particular days. You're going to be hitting full body rather than maybe some sort of body part split or something of that nature. Or maybe you're doing more sets per body part rather than, oh, well, I'm only going to do, since I'm hitting upper body 2 or 3 times this week, okay, I'm only going to have to do a couple sets each time. And so you have this frequency versus intensity.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think 4 might be a good sweet spot, because then you're not spending so much time in the gym. I've definitely when I was doing the 6 days a week, there were times to get it in, I would double down the workout, like do 2 in one day. And I only did it a couple times, but a 3-hour workout in the gym that normally each workout would take about an hour each. But when I was combining to get the more higher volume, it'd take like 3 hours to do them, because you just needed more rest in between. And it was a marathon workout that day, So I could see maybe you're not pushing it to a 3-hour workout, but you're pushing that hour workout to like an hour and a half. Let's be real, sometimes hour and 45, especially if you're pacing yourself between the exercises, because you got to rest. I think most people think like, I'm going to go hit the gym and do 45 half hour, 45 minutes. I don't think that's enough time to give yourself in the gym, personally.
I think it really depends on what your total program looks like and what you're training for, because there's a difference between training for performance and training for hypertrophy or physique. And you've got to, and this is going back to what I was talking about sitting down with a coach initially and identifying those things, because if you're concerned about strength and function, that's a very different program than I want to look really, really good at the beach. There's some overlap there, don't get me wrong. But the weight, even down to the order of exercises and things like that, that all changes. The choice of exercise, those actually matter when it comes to whatever your program is designed for.
And your time, because then I imagine if you want a shorter workout, then you're adding in your supersets where you're working these, inverse muscle groups so that you can do a circuit to get things done quicker, and probably more of a endurance level workout. It wouldn't necessarily be a strength, like, high intensity, like a low rep strength program, because you need more rest in between those. And that'd be a good general fitness program, I would think, for most people to do that kind of pathway. I would think you'll probably say, well, it depends on the training and the person and the program setup.
Well, that's true. I actually would lean more towards against supersets whenever possible. I think supersets are generally going to be a last resort in programming. If somebody's like, "Oh, I only have this much time," okay, let's figure out some things that we can do here. Or if you're doing something that's very specific to the supersets as far as sport, performance, activity, things like that.
Okay.
Or if you're doing very general fitness where you don't have to worry about muscle mass, but you want to think of it from two perspectives. One, are we training cardiovascular aptitude, or are we looking at weight training and muscular development? And it kind of falls into those two categories. Okay, let's train strength and muscular development, or let's train cardiovascular activity. Now, again, looking at sport and things like that, where you have to have, okay, I need my muscular endurance to be able to last this amount of time. Fantastic. Then maybe we look at that. But if we're looking at building larger, stronger muscles, we need to be looking at intensity over necessarily, like this is the trap. You're going back to the avatar of 35-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people fall into the trap of, well, I have these 2.5-pound dumbbells that I lift 50 times. And it's like, that's fantastic. And they don't understand why they're not gaining muscle mass. Well, you're not challenging the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start running into supersets, the thing you got to watch is, am I doing a suboptimal loading scheme?
Okay. Gotcha.
So, because you're biasing towards, okay, I'm trying to get this all done, so I'm not resting the appropriate amount to be able to hit that again at full strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're really working on endurance kind of system in your body too. So you're losing energy and power throughout the whole superset if you're trying to go for time, basically.
And that may be great, again, if you have a performance where you're like, oh, I'm going to go play a sport and I need to be able to last. So knowing that my muscles, what is my submaximal load that I can continue for 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And so you could do circuit training of some sort or something like that, because it helps. This kind of goes into the old sports camp idea where it's like, okay, we're going to do 2-a-days for a period of time and build up your conditioning by getting all your muscles and
getting all your muscles and your lungs ready to huff and puff on the soccer field?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking when I think of that.
Yeah, no, so it takes a long time to build up muscle. Like, takes a long period of time. However, for the conditioning, the actual transmitters going back and forth, it doesn't take as much.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have these 4 and 6 week camps before football and things like that, is because the conditioning part doesn't take that long to build up.
Okay, gotcha. So if someone were to do like a circuit training, and let's say they're on like a 4-week program and then they kind of have a deload week or something, probably at the beginning they're pretty gassed a little bit throughout the first week, maybe a little slight muscle soreness, but the second week's feeling a lot better. Third week, they're probably ripping through the workout. Fourth week, they're ripping through it again. And then it's ready for a deload and then change. And does that sound about right for that pattern?
Yeah, I mean, typically you have gas or general adaptation syndrome, where it's just a matter of, hey, I had this novel stimulus hitting my body, something I haven't done before.
Mm-hmm.
It's now going to have to adapt to that. And so that usually manifests as soreness, general fatigue. But like you said, what you'll notice is after a couple of weeks, even doing the same things, the same loads, or even sometimes more loads, your body doesn't necessarily feel the same sort of fatigue or soreness that it did the first couple times. And what ends up happening for a lot of people is they try it the first couple times. They usually probably go harder than they should have, end up with a lot of fatigue. And then guess what? They're not going to want to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym before work because now they're sore when they wake up. So the motivation is low. But if you have the dedication to be, nope, it's 5 a.m., I'm going to go in there, even if I only hop on the bike. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think you really got to ease into a workout, especially if you're first, you haven't worked out before. You really got to ease in so that you're not getting this crazy level muscle soreness kind of stuff, especially if you can't feel like I know I've worked out long enough. I can feel the difference between injury pain versus muscle soreness pain versus pain in the gym of like a pump versus losing your form kind of pain and things getting out of position. So it takes a while to develop that like mind body connection. Um, I know we've been talking a lot more on, I think more on like the endurance work, uh, versus like a heavy strength training. That's like your 3 rep to 6 rep kind of thing. Those, I mean, so like I was saying, you go through your workout through that month. If I'm doing like a strength training, I'm pretty sore by the end of the month. Like it's progressively making me more sore through the month. And I significantly need that deload week at the end. Um, but that's just because that's a different kind of cycle, right? That's how, and working your body in a different capacity, really.
So deloads are important, and I think it, to a large extent, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're doing high strength or high volume necessarily. The fact is everybody's going to have a lower threshold and a higher threshold for what's going to make them sore.
Okay.
And so the question is, do we want to work all the way up to that threshold? Depending on what your goals are, you may want to.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we want to have minimum effective dose? Where, okay, well, if I do this, I will continue to get stronger over a period of weeks. So you do that little step where it's, okay, week 1 is 1, adds a little bit of weight the next week, add a little bit more weight, and then drop down maybe to not quite where the second week was.
Mm-hmm.
Then continue on your way up. So that's one way of doing that. And you just have this steady process up.
See, this is why it's so important working with the trainer and setting your goals up, really, because like most people probably don't need to push it that far unless you're training for a sport or some kind of thing, then maybe, but the average person could probably do somewhere between the soreness and minimal effective dose, kind of somewhere on that sliding scale, and be happy.
And especially when you're starting out, I think is the bigger piece.
Mm-hmm.
When you're first starting out, minimum effective dose is probably the way to go, because you haven't necessarily figured out, hey, is this fatigue, is this soreness, is this injury, or is this about to be injury? And so that's the sweet spot of being able to go, okay, well, I'm recovering pretty well and I'm not feeling hurt. So this is good. Am I noticing differences? Yes, I'm getting stronger, or I'm losing weight, or I have more definition, whatever it is. Are you on your path? If yes, continue. If no, change something.
I'm already envisioning a person without a personal trainer not knowing which of them things they're in and just pushing through a workout and like either being significantly sore, whether they have an injury or not, or literally like injuring themselves and setting themselves back like a couple months on their training, because then they can't work out because they like tore something or something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's something like I worked with athletes early on, and it turns out if you have an injured athlete, they don't get paid.
Yeah.
Because they're not on the field. And so it's a matter of, okay, what can we do to support people's lifestyle? Because that's the part that people don't take into consideration, is they find these men's health routines for actors or athletes and things like that. And it's like, these people are literally getting paid to keep their body in the shape it is. You may not be in that situation. You have to go to work for 8 hours and then hang Johnny to sports practice. And you only have a half hour to an hour, maybe at the end of the day, to hit the gym and get out, rather than, oh, well, I have all day that I can just work out and get in the best shape of my life.
Yeah, and you have your personal chef and, people come to take you to your, shoots, and your day is kind of scheduled and balanced. Yeah, I could see that. Be an interesting lifestyle, right? But for those of us in the real world who have to work, and then the workout is accessory to the work, not for the work, then yeah, you're trying to balance things.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like recognizing that all of these exercise programs are helped to support whatever your sport is. If you look at it from a sports lens, your sport may be, I'm going to use the sport term pretty liberally here, but your sport may be acting. Your sport may be football. Your sport may be playing with your grandkids. And so these exercise programs need to be built in a way that it supports that it doesn't overtake that or get you injured to where you can't do those things anymore.
Now, that's the important thing of just starting out, right? So these are important elements of just starting with a personal trainer, which is important. And some people probably are thinking, well, then I can do a few sessions and then I'll be good to go. And for some people, maybe that is the case. But let's talk about the argument for like long-term, like commitment to like seeing a personal trainer for, who knows, a couple of years, maybe longer, whatever, a year, 2 years, whatever, or keep going. Because I think that's just as important because I'm still learning. And I've been working with my trainer for a year and a half, and we're still working on form. Or recently, I had like a hip surgery, so we're getting back into leg stuff. And I always know, hey, split the floor. But now I've split the floor too much and have too much of the knee going on the outside because you want your knee kind of towards the outside. Typically, people's knees collapse in when they're doing their like squats. So I've got mine now so far out to the side, I'm having the inverse problem where I'm like overdoing it. And it's like, if I don't have a trainer, guess what? I would just keep doing that until I cause like a repetitive injury to my knees. So even like, I've been doing it a year and a half, and then it's like, oh, it's easy to get off on your form too. And so it's good to have like that extra set of eyes to keep you monitored and like, but what are some other reasons why people would want to continue having a personal trainer long term?
So let's take one step back and talk about the idea of training and what that should look like depending on how long you want to be there, and then talk about long term.
Okay. Yeah.
So regardless of the amount of time you want to spend with a trainer, which I think most people should spend some amount of time with a trainer, you want to front load your sessions. You don't want to do once a week for 3 months. You'd rather do 3 times a week for a month. And the reason being is that the higher frequency that you're doing, you're not going to forget everything you've learned the session before. And so you can really build those skills up, because what this really is going back into is saying, hey, this is a skill set that you're going to be learning over a period of time.
Okay.
Your coach just happens to be more skilled in that skill set than you are, and acts as a separate set of eyes to be able to correct. And so with that in mind, if you have to pick, front load your training.
Okay.
If you're like, I'm only going to put this amount of money, this amount of time and energy into it, okay, do this. That way you can then continue to you can use those skills for the rest of your life. However, going back to what you were saying about long-term training, what's nice about long-term training is you can then spread that out and go, okay, well, instead of just having this boot camp, essentially, of learning how to lift, I'm now learning nuance. I'm learning, because there's going to be a process of when you do a squat or a bench press for the first time. Okay, well, I understand the basics of it, but then there becomes nuance. Like if you look at pro powerlifters and things like that, there's a lot of little nuances to what they're doing that changes their ability to lift significant amounts of weight. And so there's that aspect. The second aspect is just to keep you consistent, because guess what? Motivation does die down. And even for the most dedicated people, sometimes motivation waxes and wanes, So keeping that in mind, it keeps you on target. Okay, well, I really am getting tired. Maybe it's time for me to change something up. And that's something you can talk about with your trainers. Hey, should I be training this? Hey, I'm having this little bit of pain here. They can then help you, refer you to doctors if that's a situation too. Yeah, it's really a matter of trying to figure out what makes sense for you, both physically and financially, and making sure that you go through that process the best way you can.
So it sounds like possibly like an ideal situation, all money aside, sure, just work out 3 days a week forever. But, like, would you say like maybe a 3-month program of doing, 2 or 3 days a week, so you have the consistency, and then like a long-term following up once a week, making sure that accountability is there, doing a different type of exercise, like an upper body one of the weeks, lower body, make sure the form's looking good, because they'll have all those cues kind of dialed in for the most part for the 3 months, but they probably still need a little bit here and there, but not quite as frequently. Would that be like a good kind of like structure for the long-term success?
Yeah, I think that once a week, once a month, it really depends on your lifestyle and things like that
Yeah.
and where you're at. And that's a discussion you can have with your trainer is it's like, hey, and a good trainer will be able to tell you, hey, you're doing pretty well. And if you approach a subject with them about, hey, I'm thinking I want to do maybe just cut back my sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you think is the best amount of time? It's like, because the better off you are, the longer you can go without seeing them. However, if you're in a critical stage where it's like, my motivation's here or there, it's like, okay, we want to keep that frequency up.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is either multiple times a week or once a week. So, and what you can kind of do is go, okay, for the first 3 months, we're going to do 2-3 days a week. Fantastic. Then we move to once a week. Then as long as you're consistent with that, so it's gradually giving you a longer and longer leash.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm thinking if you're doing monthly cycles, usually, because that's usually what I do with my trainer. Sometimes we do longer just because I take trips or whatever. So it's just not convenient to change it up to then me having a broken schedule with the new cycle. But usually it's about a once a month change. So that could be like that. It'd be a longer training session, but it could be a once a month training session where you're literally going through the program you set up and the exercises. Some are going to be similar, so the cues are the same, but then maybe there's some new ones that they have to learn the form of and take some, cue notes on their program. I do that sometimes, like write little cue notes of like, oh, I need to remember this. Because like you said, I've done that where I'll learn the 1 week and I go to do the exercise the next week and I can't remember the cues if I don't jot a little note down. So that those like multiple touch points to learn are important, So
yeah, that's with any new skill, I think. And that's the real thing is you probably notice this more with like new exercises you've never done before, where it's like, okay, I learned this on Friday and then I come in Monday to do the exercise again. And it's like, okay, what was I doing? Versus if you've done squats for 3 months straight, even if you don't do them for a month or so, you can refer back to your muscle memory, we'll say, and be able to do squats again. Or some variation of squats. You know the basic mechanics of it. Okay, all we're doing here is widening your stance, toes pointed.
Yeah.
To get that.
Yeah, then you're working on the nuance. Like it's not that you're going to hurt yourself squatting, but if you do these other things, it's more optimal.
Yep.
That's a common thing that'll happen. One that's new for me is this new lat pull down machine.
Okay.
And that one, it's just slightly different, and it's like one of those things where you get to the bottom and you really have to force your shoulder blade down and not roll it forward at the end. So you really have to force more on the down, pulling from the elbow to get in the right position. And if I'm not there with my trainer, then I'm just doing that and putting that stress in the wrong areas and losing the actual muscle contraction of the muscle that's being targeted for it. And let's be honest, it just wears me out. So it's one of these ones where I'm losing form quicker because it's a new exercise that's taxing the muscle in a new way. So I'm losing the form. So I'm getting cued, hey, make sure you're keeping that down. And it's like, well, I'm done. It's like,
yeah. Well, and that's part of the thing too, is making sure you want to be doing the exercise correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're doing like shortened range of motion and things like that, it's better that you do it correctly and only get partial range of motion than force your way through typically. Because all exercises are shorthand for contracting muscles in a particular order. To either grow the muscle or grow a movement pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not doing, unless you're doing powerlifting or Olympic lifting or something like that, where literally the exercise matches the event. You're doing this for some other reason, to grow the muscle, to do better on the field, something of that nature. And so when you're talking about lat pull downs, for example, the goal here is to grow your lats to get stronger there. Well, if you're changing your body position to lift the weight, but you're not contracting your lats, you might as well not do it, because you're probably putting yourself in a bad situation. You're probably already fatigued, and you're risking injury, which then will take you off the field or put you in a sling.
Yeah. So. It's just funny when you say that, because once you learn personal training, you'll see people in the gym doing it wrong all the time. Wrong, but let's be real, it's not optimal. I see that a lot.
A lot of people try to brute force their way through the last rep or two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, again, that goes back to nuance. After you've worked with somebody for a while, you start figuring out, oh, this wasn't 1 rep in reserve or 2 reps in reserve. I went either well beyond that and was using accessory muscle to try to accomplish the exercise, or I wasn't even getting close to actual fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, what I try and do is I try and take clients from a point of, okay, they're probably going to start with pretty far from fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And we're probably ending the set there. But then as you start to get more and more familiar with them, you can start picking up on cueing and, okay, you've got a little bit more left in the tank. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where you're fatiguing now. That's where you really need to stop.
Yeah.
And so letting them learn that process over a period of sets, over weeks, over potentially months, is really important, because, again, that overall lowers the risk of injury.
Yeah, 100%. It's totally a learning process of this body awareness and what you're feeling, and to some extent, I mean, you are increasing a little bit of pain threshold when you work out, because there is some pain involved, but it's a different type of pain. But like you said, the fatigue. But that's different from like I said, doing your 3 rep versus doing like a 20 rep set. It's like a whole different level of fatigue style painting that's going on within that. You just have to learn the feel of it. And like, your trainer has seen people lifting. They've seen the things that are, if the form's falling apart, they know you're fatigued, you're getting to the end, and they're going to prevent an injury typically on that. Yeah. Good trainers. I mean, there are some bad trainers like, come on, get one more, you got this, and then you're not.
Your coach is spotting you when you're doing a lift. However, you will notice when they're spotting you with just being around, because you're on your first couple reps of the exercise, and then they'll start getting a little bit closer because they're picking up the read. So it's like, oh, you're fatiguing. I can tell what's going on. Usually that's indicated by bar speed is typically the easiest one to notice. Is the first couple will feel really powerful, move really smoothly and quickly. And then as you start getting closer and closer to fatigue, the bar speed starts slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that tends to be the biggest indicator for me as a coach when I'm looking at it. It's like, okay, you're doing well. Okay, you're starting to slow down. How many more do we have?
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing, because we're talking about having a good trainer, knows what they're doing.
Okay.
Now, can some people just take a personal training weekend course and get a certification? Is that a thing?
Yes.
Because like you have your master's degree, right? My personal trainer, he has his master's degree. Now, I'm not saying that people with degrees are more talented and smarter, but realistically, I imagine they are.
They more skin in the game.
And I just think I get a lot higher quality of training probably from someone who's taken the time and dedicated themselves in that than like the weekend warrior took a course and then now is training people.
Yeah, so typically interviewing your coach initially and finding a good fit for you, regardless of what that is, that may be the weekend course person. That may be the right coach for you for a variety of reasons. Finding somebody who's more qualified might be the right option for you. It's a matter of finding the right one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, though, the amount of knowledge that somebody can get in a weekend 2-day course is a little bit less than what somebody can get over a period of 6 years getting a degree.
Fair enough.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
With that in mind, that doesn't necessarily mean that person is unqualified.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this also takes into account what is their experience level. Just because they took a 2-day course doesn't mean that they didn't train people essentially for things prior to that or after that,
Mm-hmm.
and that they just never felt the need to go to get a degree or get a different certification because they're continuing their
Yeah.
education in other ways.
Yeah, and they could be like, like I don't have a strength training degree or certification, but I've worked with the trainer long enough, I mean, maybe if it was a situation where I've done a lot of been trained for years and through that trained some friends with stuff that I've learned, then maybe you take a weekend course and you kind of got it down because it's like someone getting on the job training versus going to college, so I could see that being a thing. I just worry about people having the trainer that isn't like that. That's like the whole, like, oh, I started working out a year ago on my own and then I took this course and now I'm training people.
And so the big key there is having a trainer who's willing to say, I don't know, let me find out. Or
Mhm.
that's not in my wheelhouse, let me reach out to some people. Rather than just, well, the answer is always going to be kettlebells.
Hmm.
So, and I'm using kettlebells as an example here. It's not to say that kettlebells are a bad form.
They're a one-trick pony, in my opinion, for the
There are
most.
exercises that are fantastic with kettlebells. But the optimal training for, say, strength doesn't necessarily need to be a kettlebell-based exercise.
No.
So, or pick any other Bosu ball, medicine ball, pick any instrument you want.
It's kind of like a tool,
Yes.
You can't use a screwdriver for every single, building a house kind of thing. You need different tools and they come in handy for different things.
And so what you typically find with people who do a 2-day course or some very short course is that they're a hammer and everything looks like a nail.
Yeah, I could see.
So whereas what you tend to get with people who have spent more time, whether that's via education or just time in the industry as a whole, is they start figuring out, okay, well, this is different than that. And they can differentiate, okay, when should I use a kettlebell? When should I use a Bosu ball? When should I use a barbell? When should I use a dumbbell? And they can start configuring this program and they have a reason for it. And so as long as you're justifying logically what your reason for using a particular implement or exercise or modality, that's the important thing, is being able to go, I'm using this for this reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think you have to get a good trainer. And I know there's some intuitive nature to that too, when you're like reading your clients and what they want and just really finding out, because the whole, every time you see, you're a hammer and everything's a nail situation, everybody's different and they all have different goals and you can't just keep, plug and playing the same thing over top of it for everybody, because you're not going to, for a certain percentage, you'll get them what they want, but that's not going to be a very high percentage. So I think that's what you would excel at, is really finding what works for people. So how would you currently be working with people now? Like if people wanted to reach out and contact you and like, maybe just even, because some of your stuff is just talking online, right? To like see where people are, doing an interview and kind of getting people started that way, right? You do a lot of check-ins with people that way.
Yeah, typically I do online coaching and things of that nature, to where I give them a program, build it up based on what they need and where they're working out. If they're working out at a gym, if they're working out at home, whatever their availability is. And then we do weekly check-ins typically, just to be like, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? Fantastic. Let's correct that. And so we just move ahead on that front more than necessarily doing one-on-one training all the time.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that that doesn't have its place, and absolutely that's something that I do. But
yeah,
it's really a matter of what makes sense for most people.
And I think, we were harping on like when you first get started, it's good to see your trainer, seeing them, working out with them, having them teach you form. But also if you're just getting started out, talking to somebody about something and just getting started, because if you start with some low enough weights, you're really not going to hurt yourself, even if your form isn't completely awful, let's be honest, but like if you're starting low enough, you're not going to injure yourself, but you go in and try to lift heavy with bad form. That's where the injuries happen, I think, right?
I mean, the fact is you're not going to sign up for a triathlon today if you've never trained before. You're not going to sign up for a marathon. It doesn't make sense. Now, by the same token, you might still want to go, oh, hey, I want to start doing some cardiovascular activity, or I want to do some swimming, or I want to do some weight training. Fantastic. Picking the right thing at the right time is the part that most people skip.
Mm-hmm.
Is they're like, oh, I'm going to lift weights. What's the heaviest thing I can put on there? And I'm going to figure out my 1 rep max on day 1 for my bench press.
Mm.
And that's a very typical thing. Is they're like, well, let's see, I can do that. Let's put more weight on there.
My shoulders hurt just thinking about that.
It's very common.
Especially because I know for me, the bench was really getting the lats activated. And, I mean, that was the common thing is like shoulders rolling forward and really pushing through. You're really putting a lot of stress on your shoulders rather than using the lats like a spring to get the weight back up. And then what do you do if you don't have the lats built?
Yeah.
Then it isn't even there to do that yet. So that goes into, you need all these specific exercises to build your body tuned for that sport, right? That you want to do, which would be the bench press or something like that. So,
yeah. And it's a matter of, okay, are you doing a barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Or a machine chest press. And those may all like spit into different parts of your program based on either A, what you're doing that day, what your experience level is. I mean, when I'm teaching bench press, a lot of times I'll have people sit down, lay down, grab the bar, unrack it, re-rack it, stand back up. Yeah. Just so they learn to do the process the same every time. They don't even necessarily get a single quote unquote rep in for the first session. Maybe they get something in by the end of it. But it's just, hey, let's make sure we're setting it up that way. When we start adding weight, you're doing the exact same thing. And so it's not, there's nothing going on that is going to change the dynamics of the environment.
And I'm also thinking, so a lot of people early on, machines are probably I think machines have their place everywhere with working out, really. So I don't know that it's the best to just start with machines if you have no experience, or to do a little free weight stuff, because they both have very important aspects to lifting, in my opinion.
If you're choosing not to have a trainer working with machines, it's kind of like lifting on training wheels.
Okay.
Is the best way to think about it.
Yeah.
Can you mess it up? Yes, absolutely. However, you still have the training wheels. It's still going to guide you in the general direction you need to go in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working out in a highly fatigued state, machines are good. So typically when I build programs, I'll have barbell stuff, then it would be dumbbell or cable, and then finally like machine stuff, because that's when you have the most risk of being fatigued and having something happen. So instead, if we do that and it's like, hey, guess what? You're doing a shoulder press on a machine. Guess what? You didn't drop a weight on your head.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas if we chose to do a barbell overhead press at the end of your workout, if you've done everything else, the risk of failure goes up significantly. And so you can't press as hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know the machines, for me, being more seasoned, so to say, is also that you can get really good muscle isolation depending on the machine and the specific muscles that you're working at. They have cams in them that control where the weight is shifting into the muscle contraction too. So that's good. So, I mean, they're good for everybody, but I see how that's like a training wheel kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of stuff really to take in. So I think really, so if people want to reach out with you, is it best to like email you?
Yeah.
Is that the easiest way?
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'll put so this will go on like YouTube, and I'll just put your email in the comments or the little description block. And if people want to reach out, email you. Because oftentimes you're either doing the online coaching, to chatting with people. Oh, I was going to say, if people say they work out at Planet Fitness already, could they just record a video of what they have there? Or you might even know what they have at Planet Fitness.
Yeah. And so typically what I'll have people do during that first session is, let's talk about what your goals are, what you have available to you, those sorts of things. And so if they can give me a general idea, I can generally figure out the program from there. However, if they don't know, it'll be like, hey, go take pictures, go take some video of what you have available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or just write down the names of the machines, things like that. Like you said, Planet Fitness is a pretty standard type of situation where it's like, okay, I know they're going to have Smith machines. I know they're going to have traditional machines. They're going to have certain things there.
Mm-hmm.
If you belong to a more private gym, it becomes more necessary for me to know exactly what's there.
That's kind of what I did with my trainers, just video recorded slowly what I have so that they could look through, because it wouldn't take you long to figure out, oh yeah, that's that, that's that, that's that, that's that. Like, it's not like you would have to look up what the machine is, whereas someone new is just like, I don't know what that thing is, like nobody knows kind of thing. And a lot of these machines, I think they even have like videos online of how to use proper form. I know my trainer early on would like make an exercise and then they'd send me a link to like someone doing the actual exercise. Like there's a lot of that online too. So
yeah. So when I set up programs for people, the way I get feedback from people is they actually have to go through and fill out that they did the exercise and how much they did and things like that.
Mhm.
And so typically it'll say dumbbell bench press. It'll say 3 sets, 10 reps, this amount. But you click on the video and it shows you what you're supposed to be doing in general.
Cool.
So again, going back to that, it's all within the program that you're doing anyway that you have to fill stuff out in.
Is that like an app that you're using that does? So that's convenient. So if people are working with you, then they have their workout, but not only that, they have the video of what the exercise looks like with the form too. So
yeah, so if you
that's
need that
helpful.
reminder of, okay, I know I went over this with my trainer as far as overhead tricep extension, but I don't remember exactly what that is. You can just click on, oh, got it. I remember that one now.
Yeah.
No video is necessarily going to trump having somebody there with you. At the same time, it's going to give you what you need to get through the day.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll just see the name of the exercise and you literally can't remember
Yep.
what it is. So just seeing a video of it is like that cue refresher, like, oh yeah, that's that. So,
and what's nice too is if, say, you live far away from me and we can't necessarily get together and, do hands-on training, it becomes one of those things where you can also video yourself and upload videos and then we can talk about that.
Oh, so you can look at people's form if they take the time to actually record themselves.
Yeah.
Or get like someone with them to record them or something like.
Exactly. You can just set up a tripod if you're, depending on the facility you're in.
Yeah, yeah.
Or have somebody video with your camera, your phone.
Yeah.
And just go ahead and upload it. And it's all within the app that way to where or you can just write down notes. Hey, and that's part of the reason that weekly coaching call is so important, is because I'll go back through that and be like, oh, I saw that you did this. Your knees were really dropping in when you're doing your squats. Let's talk about that and ways to fix that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's cool. So it can be kind of like, yeah, it's not as optimal as you being right there doing the cues, but there is a way that you can get some feedback on your form, even doing like just an all online, which could be a lot more convenient for people, really.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a guy who was out in Seattle at one point. And so it's a matter of, guess what? I'm not flying out to Seattle every week to
really.
So
yeah, really.
It's a matter of, well, what are we doing? Fantastic. Send me video. Looks good. Let's try, keep your shoulder blades down and back. Things like that, where it's very simple cues.
Mm-hmm.
And if people, or hey, I'm noticing when I do this, I'm having X or Y problem. Okay, let's figure that out.
Yeah. And that might prompt, like, if they're having a problem, first they take a note on it, and then you say, well, take a video of it next time and let's have a look at it, so then you can kind of diagnose what's going on with the movement. And then you might say, oh, well, that's your problem right there. You're doing this. Then here's the cue for you. Remember this cue. Like my trainer has one typically like big chest.
Yep.
Big chest is a common one. The pelvic tilt in. So you say like belly button in,
yep,
right? And then shoulders back and down, shoulders back and down. There's some very common ones. What's it? Split the floor, right?
Yep.
Split the floor. And for some people early on, that's, making your knees go out further too. But like I said, if you've been training for a while and you're using that as a cue, sometimes that's not the cue anymore. And it's like you're overdoing the thing.
Exactly. So, it's just trying to figure out what's most beneficial for that person, because there's 100 cues, but it's a matter of what's wrong. Yeah. Is there anything wrong? Or are you, and there's levels of optimal. So early on, and this goes back to something we were talking about, the benefit of long-term training. Just because you're doing something that may not get you injured doesn't mean it's optimal.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that goes again into that benefit of training long-term, is because if you're doing something that's not going to get you injured, but it may not be optimal, we may have bigger fish to fry as far as, okay, I'm not going to give you I'm not going to nitpick everything on every exercise right now because we need to pick up the things that are going to get you the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, definitely. Well, I think we talked about a lot of good stuff here, and I hope when people watch this, they get a lot of good information about what it's like when you start working with the trainer and how much there's a lot of details into it, and it's a lot of catering to you as an individual. But also how convenient it can be, because like you said with this app you have, it's like really easy to do. So it's, and we don't need to put any prices up or anything, but I imagine doing online training is probably somewhat more affordable for most people rather than having a trainer seeing a trainer like in the gym for an hour 3 times a week. Just because not to get into it, but there is a whole industry thing where that gym is going to take some of the money from the trainer to cover some of the liability expenses on their insurance for the gym. So your trainer might charge you like, let's say 70, 80 an hour or something like that. Well, they got to pay the gym like 30, 40% of that right off the rip kind of thing. So with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And thanks for coming on, Joey. And looking forward to, hanging out again and just chilling because we're friends. So we chill and do game nights and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.